Hello, my name is Shantel from Shantel is Probably Sorry. The time the reaction starts is in the description, even though this isn't a reaction, it's a rewatch. I don't have anything to say except that these are now going to be more review heavy than reaction heavy. So there'll be more of me saving what I need to say for the end and less of the actual episode playing.
There is a painless way to reunite with Siobhan and Kira.
Rachel in her windows.
Simply surrender yourself.
What did I say? If she surrendered herself now, the show would be over.
We've come here to take you to Kira.
This is not funny, I'm sorry. Wow, you know, I actually liked the restaurant owner guy.
You still work for Leaky on your behalf to protect you. Let's go to bed.
Alright, don't be long.
Look at Felix's face.
What the hell are you wearing? Oh yeah. Look, I'm not gonna apologize for my heart, okay? And I promise both of you guys that I'm not gonna get fooled again. Just sit tight, okay?
I promise both of you guys that I'm not gonna get fooled again.
This is totally crazy.
Wipe away the plasma, scrub off every stain, and I cannot control my asthma. I'll stand by to entertain. Okay, that right there. Rewind that actually. So last season I discussed finding a visual plot hole because I had to do an assignment for my American Sign Language class, which required me to watch an episode of a show that I was very familiar with, but with no sound and with no subtitles or closed captioning. I watched this episode for my assignment, and because I was forced to just pay attention to everything that was happening visually, I saw that those are fingerprints. Meaning that the area that Allison lives, at least, the DMV takes fingerprints because some areas do that. And I personally just found it peculiar that those fingerprints would have in no way flagged a match. One of the commenters said that it was probably because in this hypothetical world, they searched for prints in the criminal database, and as soon as it flagged Sarah for a match, they stopped looking. They searched the criminal database first and then maybe go to general population, as opposed to just searching for the fingerprint records everywhere at once. Because I was saying, why did Allison not come up as a match since her fingerprints are on digital record?
I can go in there and demand that Rachel let them go. Rachel doesn't take demands, Cosima.
This is one of my favorite shots of the show for some reason. Like this shot right here. And then on top of that, Ramon and his thing for the Lidas. Hashtag good looking family. Hashtag whoa. Hashtag hot. John and Graham. This was one of the things that I considered saving for the end, but since the scene is playing, I might as well say it now. This whole clone swap thing that's happening right now, for this particular one, okay, I'll just say that I personally, it's a combination between, I don't know how to say it completely, so I'm going to say that I can't suspend my disbelief. It's almost as though I have a hard time believing this particular clone swap. It's kind of like the perfect circumstance type of thing. Sarah's disguise as Cosima right here is very dependent on everyone in Cosima's life, particularly Delphine and Leaky, because they're the only people there who know Cosima. It's dependent on those two people or anyone that knows Cosima being very unobservant, and B, it depends on those people not having knowledge or not having been exposed to Black culture or a culture in which locks are predominant, i.e. Black culture. Because I'm just saying, if I were Delphine, I would have instantly been able to tell that that's not Cosima, unless Cosima between yesterday when I saw her and today, no, come to the diet event. Tomorrow night, yeah. Unless Cosima between yesterday night and today brushed or combed out all of her locks, which would have made her hair much longer than it actually is. Instantly, I'm like, wow, that's not locked whatsoever. So this disguise is very heavily dependent on that. So, I mean, of course, the costume people, or the people in charge of wardrobe, aren't actually going to do anything to Tatiana's hair. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that from a character's perspective, Sarah pretending to be Cosima and kind of just having her hair tousled up in the back and in no form resembling locks. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, if I was Delphine, I would have noticed instantly. And the thing is, I don't think that Leaky or Delphine are unobservant people or unobservant characters, which means that this is really heavily reliant on them not even knowing what locks really look like or what locked hair looks like versus not locked hair. Not Cosima. French leather. Sarah's like, nah. Don't kiss me, please. That is so not locked.
Okay.
How do you not notice that?
My own lab.
That's when you notice, not the very second she walked by you. I'm just saying.
You're not going to shoot me, Sarah.
It's not even funny. Oh God. This is also one of my favorite shots. Bitch, I just did. True. But yeah, like this here, I like this a lot.
Sarah?
I like the way both of their eyes reacted. Wait, did I say that right? Smug ass bitch, well look here. This is a Cosima theme. What is it doing here? This is
What, you're not having one?
definitely a Cosima theme. I remember how I felt the first time I saw this. I was so filled with joy because I thought Helena was dead and I was so disappointed. Ooh, girl. How did she survive for a whole 24 hours? Like that. Again, that was Orphan Black 201 called Nature Under Constraint and Vexed. First things first, though this episode was a decent episode, when I initially watched it, I think I was to some degree disappointed because of how intense the season 1 finale was, and I discussed this somewhere on my channel before. I think it was How to Get Away with Murder 409, yeah. Just because of how intense the finale was for last season, the follow-up didn't match that intensity for me. And that can often happen in shows. We meet Mark this episode, and though we've heard mention of the Proletheans before in season 1, now we actually are getting to know who they are, and this season is very Prolethean heavy. Now, there's this whole conversation, and it comes back to loop around later in this season, between Cosima and Delphine about my biology, my decision, versus Delphine's role as a monitor. And again, I said that the Defy Them scene that we saw in season 5 would kind of change the context from the end of season 1 on out. And Delphine made a promise to protect Cosima, which is what she's doing. I think I mentioned this before, but this show likes to straddle a lot of lines, or I've been meaning to mention it. I'll probably mention it in my discussion on stereotypes, which I'll probably have in season 2 episode 8. I'll probably have my conversation about LGBTQ representation as well as stereotypes presented in this show during 208. But in that conversation, I'll mention how they like to straddle lines, and there's a lot of gray areas presented in this show. And I think that there's Cosima's role as a scientist, but also the patient. And then there's Delphine's role as a scientist, but also the monitor or the doctor. Where Cosima is also fighting to not be regarded as property. We saw that in the Defy Them scene. We see it now. My biology, my decision. On the one hand, I understand Delphine's thought processing and her referring to Cosima as 324B21 in Leaky's presence, as well as her giving him the blood. And I've seen how all of that has come to pass on the show and what that did do or what that didn't do. But I still side with Cosima on this one, simply because it is her decision and it is her body and it is her biology, and the decision should be hers. And the clones have grown up in an environment where there's so much that's happened behind their backs in regards to decisions made about their health or their environment. Now, Ramon has the hots for the Litas. I mentioned that. One thing I saw a post about in regards to this episode was Delphine's public affection for Cosima and how they loved that, because even though Delphine, you know, had to take a minute to understand her own sexuality, she's just open with it. Costume for Sarah. I've already discussed most of my thoughts on the costume for Sarah's I'm Cosima costume. One thing I did like about that costume was the fact that she was wearing Cosima's glasses and she had to like peer over it. And that's a detail with Cosima. Having the glasses and having eyes that she has ruined is that when she's not wearing the glasses, she's squinting. We always see that about Cosima. And then when Sarah's wearing the glasses, she has to look over them. She can't see through them. A nice detail that was included in there. And I know I said I was going to have a conversation about the stereotypes in 208, but I kind of want to have part of it now, or just my thoughts on Cosima's locks, I guess. When I see Cosima and Cosima's locks, I don't see it as, you know, her with dreadlocks. I see it as Tatiana in a hairpiece, especially because of the fact that the way they twisted the hair going into the piece, it's attached to her scalp. It's twisted against her scalp, as opposed to like loose twisting like this. This is not twisted to my scalp. This scalp. Why do I keep saying scalp? Like it's an individual part. And you know, I actually used to have 3 locks. I did these myself. And the third one I did incorrectly because it was at the back of my head. I couldn't see anything. Long story short, I put way too much hair in the part and the lock ended up being like locked to my scalp on a large section, aka very, very painful, not able to be retwisted, not able to be maintained in a healthy way. That's what I mean. And so automatically when I see Cosima, I in no way believe that she's a woman with locks. I just see Tatiana in a hairpiece. I was trying to think about why they as in whoever made the executive decision to give Cosima locks. I was trying to think about why they would do that. I have my locks because of their cultural significance to me. It's more of a cultural thing as opposed to a spiritual thing, even though I did originally have 3 because of the numerology and the symbolism in the numerology, not necessarily of the Trinity, but of perfection. There are many things spiritually significant about the number 3 in many different cultures all throughout history. I sort of had my own specific reasons for that. Again, it was more of an African American cultural thing and a Jamaican American cultural thing, or just a Jamaican cultural thing. And I was thinking, in what way would those locks be culturally or spiritually significant to this woman? And that's the point, is they aren't. Considering how Cosima didn't even have any sort of spirituality until after her near-death experience in Season 2, Episode 10, I don't think that they have any spiritual significance to her. I thought that they would have, seen how in tune with life she seemed to be. But honestly, I think that these men, or whoever again made the decision, or whoever contributed to the decision of Cosima having locks, did it mainly out of the fact that she's a pothead, which I think stems from the Rastafarian religion as well as the Jamaican culture, and there are a lot of Jamaican Rastafarians. The stereotype that stoners or potheads always have locks, or that if you have locks, you smoke weed, which is why a lot of people, particularly white people or non-black people of color, but I don't often see non-black people of color with them. It's usually just white people who don't do it out of spiritual significance or cultural significance or of any sort of significance whatsoever. Do it out of stoner culture. That's not even a thing. Or do it because they think that's what you do when you're a stoner. And again, I wasn't there when they made a decision to give Cosima locks. I don't know the exact decision-making process that went into giving Cosima locks. I would just say that based on all the other stereotypical representations that have been on this show, that it very much does not surprise me, or would not surprise me, if that was the reason why they gave her locks. Especially because, for some reason, oh God, what if they didn't do it on purpose? I was about to say that I think that they purposely made Cosima not daft, because she's really intelligent, but very culturally unaware. And when I say culturally unaware, I mean culturally unaware of any culture that is not the culture of the majority. If you ask a white person in this country, or maybe even in Canada, if they have culture, they'll say no, because their culture is the predominant one. Therefore, they don't even think it's a culture. I think I'll continue that conversation at another time. It's just something I'd noticed about Cosima, or the way they represented Cosima, of being very culturally unaware. Yeah, I don't feel like finishing that conversation. I'll finish it some other time. That's all from me. Thank you for watching. Like the video if you liked it. You can check out my descriptions, my channel, or my playlist to see what other shows I watch or what else I do, and subscribe if any of those things interest you. Hope you're having a wonderful existence, and I guess that brings me to bye. I don't have anything. Oh.
No, she's gone.
She's gone where?
Just gone, okay?
Shit! Okay, wait.
Just gone.
What's with both of you?
You're doing musical.
Oh my God, no cats.
And I did that, and because I did that assignment, I watched this episode. Okay. I watched this episode for my assignment.
She says up yours.
She's cute. I don't know who she is, but cute.
Employment offer.
34B2, 34B2.
324B21.
Okay, what you want to?
Plausible deniability.
To continue healing, feeding, and fueling.
But my people found your foster mother's house overturned. They were gone when we got there.
Hope you're having a wonderful existence, and I guess that brings me to